You're listening to Faith, Stewardship, and Insurance, Protecting Texas Churches. The show that gives pastors and church leaders the clarity they need to protect their people, property, and ministry.
Welcome back to Faith, Stewardship, and Insurance, Protecting Texas Churches. I'm your host, Ron Wadley, with Insurance for Texans. We help church leaders protect their people and property with wisdom and clarity. Today's episode deals with what I call the widest unlocked gate in Texas church insurance, a risk that churches take every day without even realizing it. Joe is the executive pastor for a thriving church in Fort Worth. On a random Tuesday morning, the phone rang. The voice on the other end was panic-stricken. In the fellowship hall, the head janitor had been stripping wax off the floor. He stepped backward into a wet patch, his feet went out from under him, and he hit the concrete hard. He couldn't stand up. As paramedics loaded him onto a stretcher, Joe's mind raced. He went straight to the filing cabinet in the church office and pulled the insurance folder. He saw the property coverage. He saw the general liability policy. But what he couldn't find was a document that said workers' compensation insurance. Then he remembered a finance meeting from last year. At the time, the budget was tight. And someone mentioned that Texas doesn't legally require churches to carry workers' compensation insurance. That's when they decided to opt out and save the money. Joe sat down and put his head in his hands. He wasn't just dealing with a medical emergency. He was staring at a potential lawsuit that could bankrupt the church. Now, it's true, Texas is unique. It's one of only 2 states that allows private employers to opt out of the state workers' comp system. We call this being a non-subscriber. To a budget-conscious committee, this looks like a gift. But just because it is not legally required doesn't mean that it's wise to go without it. Many committees assume that if an employee gets hurt, the general liability policy will cover it. But that is a fatal misunderstanding. General liability specifically excludes church staff and volunteers. It's a policy that covers the liability associated with visitors and guests who get hurt on church property. Employee injuries require a completely different type of insurance coverage. If you don't have a workers' comp policy for your church's staff, you are self-insuring any injury that happens while they are on the job. But paying an injured employee's medical bill isn't even the biggest problem. The real danger is the loss of the exclusive remedy shield. In Texas, when you carry workers' compensation, the insurance company pays the medical bills and lost wages for employees who are hurt on the job. In exchange, they are unable to sue the church to recover more damages. That is your church's legal shield. Without it, that janitor can sue for his surgery, his rehab, and his pain and suffering. And you'll have to pay for the lawyers and the settlement out of the church's operating budget. There is also another major trap that your church needs to consider when it comes to workers' compensation insurance. Because of the unique tax status of religious organizations, many churches pay their pastors as 1099 contractors. But if your insurance auditor only looks at W-2 payroll, your pastor might be excluded from your workers' comp coverage. Imagine that your pastor trips on a cable during the service and breaks a hip. If no premium was paid for him because he was labeled as a contractor, the claim would be denied. You need an agent who knows how to classify your staff correctly, so there are no surprises when the medical bills start rolling in. Joe learned the hard way that opting out of workers' compensation insurance isn't a savings plan. It's a liability magnet. Don't wait for an employee injury to find out your gate is unlocked. Connect with our church insurance team today at insurancefortexans.com. And if you want to know more about church insurance in general, get a free copy of our book, The Promise of Certainty, at thepromiseofcertainty.com. I'm Ron Wadley, and this has been Faith, Stewardship, and Insurance, Protecting Texas Churches. Until next time, remember, opting out of church insurance is not a wise way to save money.
Thanks for listening to Faith, Stewardship, and Insurance. Until next time, remember, insurance isn't just about policies. It's about safeguarding the mission God has called you to lead.